Welcome to Chapter 2 of CPP Module 2 Crisis Management. In this chapter, we will focus on general event response and management. This topic builds on the foundations of emergency and crisis management covered in the previous chapter and moves into how organizations respond when disruptive events actually occur. Here, we will look at how response planning, coordination, and structured decision-making help organizations manage incidents effectively, protect people and assets, and reduce overall impact during disruptive events. When a disruptive event strikes, decisions must be made while the situation is still unfolding. At this stage, information is often incomplete, unclear, or changing rapidly. The choices made by leadership and response teams during this phase can determine the organization's long-term health as well as the immediate outcome of the incident. Effective organizations rely on pre-planned response structures and crisis coordination mechanisms to guide decision-making under pressure. Without prior planning or preparation, responses tend to be reactive and uncoordinated, which can increase damage, confusion, and overall impact. This is why structured event response planning is essential for organizational resilience. The foundation of effective event response is a well-designed response plan. A response plan establishes clear authority and accountability so everyone knows who is in charge during an emergency or crisis. It defines the triggers for activating the response plan, ensuring that events are escalated at the right time and handled at the appropriate level. The plan also outlines how resources will be managed and deployed, including personnel, equipment, and external support, to ensure an effective response. It provides procedures for communication, coordination, and situational awareness so that decision-makers have accurate information. Finally, a strong response plan supports timely recovery and return to normal operations once the immediate threat has been controlled. Together, these elements create a structured, coordinated approach to managing disruptive events. Emergency response personnel should be prepared to function in all types of emergencies, even those not anticipated at the time of plan development. Primary training should focus on the most likely situations at the location based on risk, construction, and function of the facility. In large organizations with multiple locations, a centralized emergency operations plan can be supported by site-level emergency response teams. Designating response teams and assigning resources in advance allows members to understand their roles, train on them, and quickly reference the plan during an actual event. One operating model for emergency response is to designate an emergency coordinator. The emergency coordinator is responsible for the planning and operational oversight of the emergency response plan and procedures. This role includes ensuring that plans are updated, that training and exercises are conducted, and that emergency response policies are implemented consistently. A committee of representatives from critical departments such as security, safety, human resources, legal, operations, and facilities can support the emergency coordinator and provide cross-functional input. It is important to note that a single coordinator may not be available during a real emergency. Therefore, alternate designees must be identified and trained to assume this role when needed. One of the most important considerations in developing an emergency management structure is the designation of alternates for key roles. Primary designees may not be available during a crisis due to travel, illness, or direct involvement in the incident. Therefore, more than one alternate should be designated for each primary individual named in the plan. These alternates should be trained in advance and clearly identified in the response plan. Testing and exercises must be conducted to ensure that alternates are capable of performing their roles effectively before an actual incident occurs. The Incident Command System, or ICS, is a command and control structure used by public safety agencies around the world. ICS provides standardized terminology, defined roles, and a consistent organizational structure for managing incidents of varying size and complexity. Different countries have adopted ICS-based frameworks, including the United Kingdom, the United States, Canada, and Australia, with variations adapted to national emergency management systems. For organizations and security professionals, understanding ICS is important because it enables effective coordination with public safety agencies during emergencies and large-scale incidents. In some incidents, a single incident command structure is used. This typically applies when one agency or organization has clear jurisdiction and authority over the response. In this case, one incident commander is responsible for overall direction and accountability. In more complex incidents that cross jurisdictions or involve multiple agencies, a unified command structure is established. Under unified command, representatives from each responsible agency collaborate to set objectives and direct operations together. Security professionals should build relationships with public safety and other response partners in advance and participate in joint drills and exercises. This ensures that roles, coordination mechanisms, and communication channels are familiar during real incidents. All organizations should have an internal incident management approach to support their response to emergencies and disruptive events. For limited emergencies, hazards can often be managed through normal operations with local response and support. For extensive emergencies, the organization may need to activate its crisis management team to provide strategic oversight and coordinate resources. During public safety events, organizations must coordinate closely with responding agencies, while also managing internal communication and employee safety. A structured internal incident management process ensures that the organization can respond effectively while supporting external responders and protecting business operations. Effective emergency response depends on strong liaison and coordination across multiple groups with different responsibilities. Emergency responders such as law enforcement, fire services, emergency medical services, and disaster management agencies play a critical role in managing incidents. Government officials and regulatory authorities may also be involved, depending on the nature and scale of the event. Internally, senior management, department heads, employees, and even families may be impacted and require clear communication and support. Media and public stakeholders, including private sector partners and community organizations, also influence how an incident is perceived and managed. Coordinating with all these stakeholders ensures aligned actions, accurate information flow, and an effective overall response during emergencies. Crisis management teams, or CMTs, form the core of an organization's strategic response during major incidents. This slide highlights that naming the critical personnel who will deal with business-disrupting events is the first step in building an effective crisis management program. Without clearly identified crisis management teams, responses tend to be ad hoc, delayed, and uncoordinated. By defining who is responsible for leading, coordinating, and making decisions during crisis, organizations ensure faster activation, clearer authority, and more consistent crisis response across the enterprise. When setting up a crisis management team, core members should represent key business functions. This typically includes leadership roles such as crisis manager, human resources, communications, security, legal, operations, finance, and other critical functions depending on the organization's risk profile. Key principles for building an effective CMT include ensuring that senior leadership is part of the team, so decisions can be made quickly and with authority. CMT members should be limited to those directly responsible for primary functions to avoid confusion and delays. Effective crisis planning also ensures that all areas of the organization can be activated when required, creating a coordinated and enterprise-wide response capability. Each member of the crisis team must have clearly defined roles and responsibilities. The crisis manager provides overall leadership and coordination. Corporate security supports threat assessment, protective actions, and coordination with responders. Information security manages cyber risks and data protection. Legal provides guidance on regulatory, liability, and compliance issues. Public affairs manages internal and external communications. Human resources focuses on employee welfare, accountability, and support. Risk management supports assessment of impact and recovery planning. Clearly defining these roles in advance ensures that during a crisis, decisions are made quickly, responsibilities are understood, and duplication or confusion is avoided. In larger organizations, multiple crisis teams may be required at different levels of the organization, each with distinct roles and responsibilities. At the strategic level, teams operate at the executive or senior management level, providing overall direction and high-level decision-making. At the tactical level, teams operate closer to the incident location, carrying out tactical instructions and coordinating on-the-ground response. At the operational level, teams are responsible for direct actions such as site-level response, logistics, and coordination with local responders. This tiered structure ensures that decisions are made at the right level and that strategic intent is translated into effective action on the ground. To conclude Chapter 2, effective event response and management begins with planning first. Organizations must design response plans, define roles, and prepare teams before an incident occurs. Clear structures enable speed. When roles, authority, and coordination mechanisms are defined in advance, response actions are faster and more effective during real events. Coordination is critical. Liaison with emergency responders, government authorities, internal stakeholders, and media ensures a unified and well-managed response. Finally, crisis management teams are central to managing complex events that go beyond routine incidents. Their ability to provide leadership, coordination, and strategic direction is key to organizational resilience. Thank you for watching this chapter. If this video helped your CPP preparation, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with others preparing for the CPP exam. In the next video, we will continue with the next topic in Module 2.